Hello guys, how are you today? I hope your studying goes well. Let's continue with our videos on the anatomy and physiology. Today we're going to get on track with the digestive system. Now, let me ask you something. How does that meal of steak, potatoes and salad becomes the tissues of the body? Your digestive organ system gets it halfway there. Why we say halfway and not all the way? Because the role of the digestive system is to take all the ingredients and the nutrients we need from the food we intake or we ingest. Now, the circulatory system is the one responsible that does most of the rest, which is transfer the nutrients to the tissues. Okay. Now, living systems constantly exchange energy. Physiological processes, anabolic, catabolic, homeostatic, require energy. Ultimately, that energy comes from the light energy that plants use to transform carbon in the atmosphere, as carbon dioxide, into biological matter, that is carbohydrate, in the process of photosynthesis, which we have covered in previous videos. Now, humans get their energy by consuming this biological matter, either directly or by consuming other organisms that do. The digestive system takes apart the biological matter step by step and transforms it into a form that human cells can use. Okay, now let's see a summary of the processes, like your digestive system in a nutshell, we would say. First of all, ingesting. Although all animals ingest, take something into the body through the mouth, this is the ingestion. Only humans and possibly some of the great apes appear to enjoy food as they ingest it. The perception of subtle flavors is more closely connected to olfaction than digestion. The perception of the five basic flavors is also considered neurosensory. Perception in the mouth is more about texture and is closely related to food's protein and fat content. This concept is captured by the food industry by the term mouthfeel. These sensory perceptions guide you in the selection of foods. Sometimes, though, ingestion isn't a feast for the senses. Nothing delicious is available. The body still needs calories, so whatever's available is chewed and swallowed just the same. Digesting. Although eating is fun and ingestion is bearable, but neither provides biological molecules that your cells can use. That task is accomplished by the interaction of physical and chemical forces. The digestive tract is a muscular tube lined with chemical factories that operate under the direction of their own dedicated neural structures and under hormonal control. The digestive system processes everything down the same track, extracting fuel, biological molecules, and monomers and micronutrients from whatever you eat. Regarding digestion, I would like to add and explain what are the physical and chemical forces. The physical forces is the breakdown of food into smaller pieces, like when you chew. That's what you're doing. When you're chewing, you're breaking down the food. You're acting physical forces on the food in order to break it down into smaller pieces. The chemical forces are the enzyme reactions that take place that break down the nutrients of your already broken down by the physical forces food. Okay, and then we've got exporting nutrients to the body. The end products of digestion are biological molecules, such as glucose, that are absorbed across the digestive membrane and into the blood, and then distributed in the body. And last, the elimination of digestive waste is part of the digestion. Other organ systems have evolved to make use of the digestive system structure to eliminate metabolic waste of other kinds. Now, the digestive tract, also called the alimentary canal or the gastrointestinal tract, as I'm going to call it, GI tract from gastrointestinal tract. Now, the GI tract is a tube through which ingested substances are pushed along for physical and chemical processing. The tube walls are made up of an outer fibrous layer called mucosa. Oh, I'm sorry. No. An outer, here we go. An outer fibrous layer is the peritoneum, the visceral peritoneum. Okay. A muscular layer, here we got muscle. Then we've got the submucosa, here, this layer, which is a supportive connective tissue layer, and an inner layer, which contains the epithelial lining called the mucosa. You can see that we've got some glands in the mucosa that excrete their products directly in the lumen. We have explained in the previous video what is the lumen. It's the hollow space here is called the lumen. Okay. Now all the layers vary in thickness from one place to another along the digestive tract. The space inside the tube is the lumen. Okay, and its size varies too, the lumen of your esophagus, for instance, isn't the same of the lumen of the stomach, nor with the lumen of the small intestine or the colon. Okay, now the digestive system gross anatomy, no pun here, is comparable to that of an industrial smelter. Some structures bring in raw materials, other structures extract, process, and sip out specific substances, and still other structures export the unused part of the raw materials back into the environment. The body uses both mechanical and chemical mechanisms to break down the raw materials and export products to the larger system. The economy in the case of the smelter, the organism in the case of the intestine. These efficient systems are organized linearly. Things keep moving along in one direction at a steady pace. Right. First of all, the starting point of the digestive system, the mouth, or as it is called medically, the oral cavity. The mouth is the starting point of the digestive system, the gateway to your other digestive organs. Besides making eating a fun experience, the oral cavity serves some important digestive functions, as described now. First of all, we've got 32 teeth, 16 on the top and 16 on the bottom. But explaining to you in the mouth while not looking at it, this is not anatomy and not physiology. So let's look at the mouth here. We've got 16 teeth on top and 60 on the bottom. Your teeth tear and grind food into pieces that are small enough to swallow, and they come in 4 basic types. First of all, we've got the incisors, then that is for biting. Then we've got the canines for tearing, the premolars here, the premolars, and the molars for grinding. Now the gums, or the gingiva as they're called, they hold teeth in position. But let me show you, with a layer called cementum, okay, that embeds your teeth's roots in your jawbone. Now blood vessels that run through the jawbone and up into the pulp of the tooth, which is the center of the tooth. Okay. Supply the teeth with blood. Now we've got dentin, a bone-like material. Here, dentin, a bone-like material that covers the pulp of the tooth, and externally we've got a protected enamel that covers the dentin. Also, we've got our tongue to help with chewing. This tongue. First of all, your tongue is mainly skeletal muscle tissue. The muscle is covered on the upper surface by a mucous membrane. And now you're listening to the word mucus and you're asking, what is the mucus? We talked about it. It's a type of connective tissue. I don't believe you should know more details, just that it is a type of connective tissue. This is what you should know. Connective tissue. So it is the muscle on the upper surface by mucous membrane, by connective tissue, in which are embedded the taste buds. Now, the tongue muscles move the food around your mouth to assist chewing. The mucus moistens and lubricates the bolus. What is the bolus? It is little pieces of food like balls. Okay, and they are chewed and they are with saliva. And before you swallow, what you're going to swallow are these little balls of food. This is called the bolus. Okay, it's a mouthful of food in the process of being chewed. Now, muscles attach the tongue to the skull bones, and the mucous membrane of the tongue underside attaches your tongue here, attaches the tongue on the bottom of the oral cavity floor. Okay, that stringy piece of membrane here, that stringy piece of membrane is called the lingual frenulum. All right, the lingual frenulum. Now, we've got the buccal membrane to kickstart digestion. What is that? The buccal membrane is that portion of the digestive mucosa that lines the inside of the mouth. All right. No, it is not in that picture. Anyways, several salivary glands have ducts that course through the buccal membrane and secrete mucus and salivary amylase, a digestive enzyme, into the oral cavity. These glands often go into action before you take the first bite of your meal. A delicious aroma, or even just the anticipation of eating something you enjoy, can get those juices flowing. Now the saliva. It is produced by 3 pairs of salivary glands. I don't believe you should know their names. This is why I haven't put it, but in case you want to learn them, here are. Alright. The enzymes now break down the chemical bonds and macromolecules that make up food, and they aid the mechanical digestion by moistening and lubricating food, so it helps to the physical forces to act on it, because when it's wet, it's more easy to break down. We've talked about the buccal membrane, and this is for your information, something extra in case you would like to read something. Now, sending food to the stomach, the pharynx and esophagus. First of all, the pharynx, better known as your throat, leads to the esophagus. Now, I want you to know that the esophagus is written with E. I don't believe the O. The O is omitted, usually. But Keynote, the program that I'm using to create these files, does not recognize the word esophagus with just E. So it corrects it immediately with O. So when you see that word, it means just esophagus, no O in the beginning. All right. So the pharynx leads to the esophagus, and it is the tube that extends from the mouth to the stomach. So when we swallow, the bolus bounces off of a piece of cartilage called the epiglottis, and it is diverted from the trachea and into the esophagus. The trachea is a tube that leads air to the lungs. So it bounces off the epiglottis, okay, here, and it is diverted from the trachea. That means it cannot go here because we don't want food ending up on our lungs. So to go here into the esophagus and then to the stomach. The esophagus, though, has 2 sphincters, one at the top and one at the bottom, that control the movement of the bolus into and out of the esophagus, respectively. The pharyngoesophageal sphincter, composed of skeletal muscle, it is called the pharyngoesophageal. So it is between the pharynx and the esophagus. Okay, takes part in the muscular actions involved in swallowing. And then the bolus is propelled along the esophagus by peristalsis. And I will just show you what is peristalsis until I finish. Now, the lower esophageal sphincter surrounds the esophagus just as it enters the stomach. Okay. This is the esophagus all through its lining. Here is the stomach. Here is the esophagus. You see the trachea above it. It needs to be diverted and not go to the trachea and go to the esophagus back. And that's it. Now this is the peristalsis, is the movement of the muscles in the cells, in the walls of these organs, in order to propel food. Okay, this is peristalsis. It's circular muscular movement. So, the upper third of the esophagus is made up of skeletal muscle, beginning in the middle third of the esophagus and extending to the anal sphincter, that is the end of the GI tract. We've got layers of smooth muscle that line the digestive tract. This smooth muscle contracts in pulsating waves, pushing the lamin's contents along in a single direction. This is called peristalsis. Okay. Now, a mucous membrane lines the digestive system, running continuously from the mouth all the way through to the rectum. This membrane protects your digestive organs from the strong acids and powerful enzymes secreted in the digestive system. The membrane's innermost cells, that is, those next to the lamen, are among those cells that are continuously replaced. The digestive mucosa secretion keep everything in the digestive tract moist, soft, and slippery, protecting the membrane and its underlying structures from abrasion and corrosion. Now, the digestive mucosa contains tissues and cells that secrete other substances as well, including gastric acid, hormones, neurotransmitters, and enzymes. Now, the digestive mucosa also contains an excessive network of lymphatic tissue. As you can see in that picture here, you see lymph nodules, and we've got lymphatic tissues in the digestive mucosa. Alright, now let's go to the stomach, breaking it all down, the stomach. After passing through the bottom sphincter of the esophagus, the bolus drops into the stomach, the widest and the most flexible part of the GI tract. Food remains in the stomach for 2 to 6 hours, during which it's churned in an acidic substance that the stomach secretes called gastric juice, ground up by thousands of strong muscle contractions and offered in tiny pieces to protein digesting enzymes. Apologies. The outside of the stomach is a tough connective tissue layer called the serosa. Here this is the serosa. Alright, then we've got 3 muscle layers. The muscular coat. It has 3 layers of smooth muscle fibers. Oblique, circular, and longitudinal, that contract in different directions. Stretch receptors in this layer send nerve impulses to the brain when the stomach is full. These 2 layers support the structure of the stomach as a hollow organ. Now, beneath these connective tissue layers are 2 mucosal layers, the submucosal coat and the mucus coat, also called the stomach lining. Gastric glands in the mucosa, the innermost, secrete the components of gastric juice. Now, the mucosal coat is corrugating. That means it has this rugae, as they're called, or ragi, I don't know, which these folds increase the surface area inside the hollow. As the stomach fills, the ragi smooth out, allowing the stomach to expand. Now, the stomach's muscular action is part of physical digestion, like chewing, swallowing, and peristalsis. But the stomach's contribution to chemical digestion is what really helps break down the food we eat. Now, as the stomach churns the bolus in the gastric acid, the material turns into an oatmeal-like paste called chyme. The chyme squirts into the small intestine through the pyloric sphincter. The pyloric sphincter through the lower part of the stomach, called the pylorus, and the top of the small intestine, called the duodenum. Okay, now let's go to the intestines, importing and exporting. First of all, the intestine is a long muscular tube, about 6 meters or 20 feet, that extends from the pyloric sphincter to the anal sphincter. But how does 6 meters of tubing fit into a relatively small space that's also crowded with other organs? It becomes narrow and convoluted. The intestines are classified as small and large based on their width and not their length. The lamen of the small intestine is about 2.5 centimeters in diameter, while the large intestine is about 6.4 centimeters. Okay, about tripled. Overall, the intestine specializes in the import and export of biological substances of many kinds. Now, as is usual for organs with import and export functions, the intestine has structures that maximize the surface area available for exchange. Now, the intestine's muscular outer walls lie coiled closely together within the abdominal cavity, held in place by the fibrous sheaths of the peritoneum. With 2 layers of smooth muscle tissue, longitudinal and circular, the intestine specializes in strong, sustained peristalsis. The intestinal mucosa is continuous with the rest of the digestive mucosa. It's studded with specialized work areas that produce hormones, neurotransmitters, enzymes, and other substances integral to the digestive process. Now, the capillary beds that line the intestine define the interface of the digestive and circulatory systems. These capillaries are arrayed more or less continuously along the intestine's lamen. And now you see this projection. What on earth is that? It says here villi, and these you see here, and again here. What are these villi? Or singular villus? It is a structure that specializes for import and export processes, and that's characteristic of tissues in body locations where substances are exchanged. Villi are finger-like projections of the mucosa that multiply the surface area available for exchange, much like wharves and piers extending into a harbor increase the area for harbor activities. Villi line the entire length of the small intestine, projecting out into the lamen. Each vilus has its own assigned capillary for absorbing materials from the intestine into the blood. Microvilli are even smaller projections of the epithelial cells of the mucosa. We've talked about microvilli in the past videos. Now, some of these processes require active transport, the expenditure of some energy in the form of ATP. Okay, and this is the inside of the small intestine. You see the villi? Wow, I know. It's really creeping me out to this picture. And I'm making this video now, and it is really late. It's about 4 in the night or in the morning. I don't know how you say it, but it's 4. And this is really creeping me out. Anyways, apologies for getting out of the subject. Let's continue now. Let's investigate the small intestine. The small intestine does a lot of the physical work of the digestive system. It begins with peristalsis, and it is majorly involved in digestive chemistry. The small intestine is a digestive organ and an endocrine gland as well, producing and secreting hormones that control digestion. Cells in the small intestine wall secrete the hormones secretin and cholecystokin, CK, which stimulate the release of digestive fluids, such as bile, from the gallbladder and pancreatic juice from the pancreas. Now, the small intestine walls are lined with secretory tissue that functions in chemical digestion. Cells in the duodenum's walls, what is the duodenum? The first part of the small intestine. In the duodenum's walls, secrete digestive enzymes. Brunner's glands in the small intestine's lining secrete mucus and bicarbonate directly into the lumen to help neutralize the gastric juice in the chyme. Now you will ask, why bicarbonate? We have talked about us in our video on biochemistry that bicarbonate is an ion that is used to neutralize the pH, either when it is acidic or it is basic. It neutralizes, it tends to bring the pH near 7. Okay, and we have explained why in our biochemistry videos. So if you don't remember, go back and check that. Now, the small intestine is divided into 3 structures along its 3 to 6 meter length. The duodenum, which is about 0.3 meters, the jejunum, which is about 1 to 2 meters, and the ileum, which is about 2 to 4 meters. The small intestine is approximately 2.5 to 5 centimeters in diameter. And now let's understand the work of the large intestine. Chyme oozes from the small intestine. Here we are in the small intestine, the ileum, the last part of the small intestine, and now it goes into the cecum, the first portion of the large intestine, and in order to enter the cecal, it needs to pass through a veil. This veil connects the ileum and the cecum, therefore it is called ileocecal veil. Okay, and now the material is called feces. The large intestine is about 2 meters long. This is 2 meters about long. And it is positioned like a frame around the small intestine. This is the small intestine, and this is the large intestine. Beyond the cecum, we've got the large intestine moves upward as the ascending colon. Also, the large intestine is called colon. Okay, across as the transverse colon, and downward as the descending colon. Okay, and finally into the sigmoid colon, because there's like an S here, an S said, therefore sigmoid. In the large intestine now, water is reabsorbed by feces, from the feces by diffusion across the intestinal wall and into the capillaries. The removal of water compacts the indigestible material in the colon, forming the characteristic texture of the feces. So we explained the texture of the feces, and you may ask now yourself, what about the color of your feces? Well, we need to talk about that as well. Your intestines, no, I'm sorry. Yes, in addition to undigested food, the feces contain other bodily waste that need to be excreted. Okay. The brown color of feces comes from the combination of greenish yellow bile pigments, broken down hemoglobin, and bacteria, and this is the normal. So, from different colors of the feces, we can understand what is wrong with the body. Now, your intestines are home to unimaginably large numbers of bacteria, including hundreds of species. Trillions of tiny prokaryotic cells ingest some of the undigested material in your feces, producing molecules that have a well-known odor. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, and nothing to be proud of either. Some of these bacteria produce beneficial substances, such as vitamin K, which is necessary for blood clotting. These substances are absorbed through the intestinal wall and transported into the blood via the capillaries. And now we're going through the colon and the rectum. As the colon completes its work, peristalsis moves feces into the rectum, which is located at the bottom of the colon. Stretch receptors in the rectum signal to the brain they need to defecate when the rectum contains about 142 to 227 grams. Pushed by peristalsis, the feces pass through the anal canal and exit the body through the anal sphincter. And this is all for today, guys. In the next video, we're going to talk about the liver and the pancreas and some digestive fluids, enzymes, and hormones. Okay. Now, before we finish, I want to explain you how I perceive these videos for anatomy and physiology and why I make them like I do. I believe that in order for someone to study medicine, you need to have some fundamental knowledge. So you need to know what each system does, what each organ does, and a summary of how it does it. So when you go to university, in order to be introduced to the anatomy of the organ, you need to know where it is. Not very specifically, but generally. You need to know that. And also you need to know its function in order to understand its anatomy. Before you go to the physiology, you need to have some knowledge, because otherwise it will be very, very difficult for the teachers to teach you. So in order to have this knowledge, the Italian universities have ensured that students who get into them have this kind of knowledge. And this is what I believe is requested by the anatomy and the physiology section of the IMAT topic. And this is how I'm making these videos. A summary of its system, its major functions, and how it performs. Anatomy is where it is, what it is. Physiology, how it does what it does. And this is what I'm doing through these videos. Now, I'm also looking at questions to see the level of depth they request. And if I don't cover some parts of my videos and I have seen questions about them, I will make separate videos at the end with questions that with material that I have not covered and they have been in previous IMAT papers. Anyways, thank you guys for watching my videos. The subscribers to my channel is around 100. Thank you so much, all of you, for watching my videos. Also, if you have any questions, comment below. And if you go to my channel, click below. There is the IMAT preparation. You go to my channel page. You will see around here that there is a ring button. Click that in order to receive notifications every time I upload a video. Anyways, that's all for today, guys. Bye bye. Thank you so much.